Hey everybody, it's Delina. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I just want to talk about the whole Puff Daddy Cassie Ventura trial, what's going on. And I think we've all heard the gory details of the text messages back and forth this whole week. But a lot of things that I'm hearing from everybody is like, why did she stay? Why? And I think that's where the defense is going, is showing like, why did she stay? She obviously kind of, and where they're trying to portray it as that she liked what was going on, she was participating, and some of her text messages kind of portray that. But today, I just want to talk about the whole trauma bond. I kind of touched on this the other day about the trauma bonding, but I kind of did more of a deep dive into it. I'm going to go over the eight kind of signs of trauma bonding and how it kind of relates to Cassie and what she might be going through. It will be very interesting to see if the prosecution comes up with some kind of psychological expert on this, because to me it seems like a textbook trauma bonding, and it would like, well, pretty much explain a lot of her behavior. Please like, subscribe, share. Very interested in your comments, and all the support is greatly appreciated. So let's just dive into kind of the eight key things that kind of constitute like a trauma bond, which I truly believe that she was in this horrible situation. The first thing is that you kind of are, it's the person that you're attracted to is got that very charismatic, very charming, in which Puff Daddy was. She was 19 years old. He was, I guess, 36, 37. He's 17 years older than her. And I think, well, obviously successful, powerful man, and he was there to help her. He was almost like a knight in shining armor. She had just started her career, and she had that hit song, "Me and You," and she had it with another producer, but she was just kind of on the rise. And then she meets this huge mogul, and he kind of shows interest in her, and he just has that charm, that je ne sais quoi, and she was, I'm sure, just attracted to that, and someone that can completely help her in her career. So, outwardly charming, that is one of the characteristics. You are attracted to someone like that. The second thing is the emotional unpredictability, and obviously he's showing that in spades. I heard someone explain it one time. It's like a slot machine. So it's like the ups and the downs. Like sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you win a little bit, sometimes you don't. But you keep going back, and you're looking for that big win. And in the whole cycle of abuse, you have that honeymoon period where everything's just awesome, and then you start to go down. They try to degrade you. You kind of fall off their good list, and then that's when the real abuse starts. And then as they're trying to get you back on the good side, because you sometimes get to the point where, okay, I've had enough, I'm leaving, and they can sense that, and that's when they come back up with the fake promises, the future faking, what he's gonna do for her. And I believe he promised her like 10 albums, and I think she only put out one, and then she did some kind of a mixtape. So he didn't even come through with what he had promised her. And sometimes it's called breadcrumbs. And I think as he was kind of holding her along, he was just giving her these breadcrumbs just to keep her going. The third thing is that they take all their problems out on you. And anybody that's been in kind of a family situation where there is someone who's abusive, like it's like you're very in tune to where their moods are. So some things, like if you're a kid and your dad comes home and you can sense the air in the room, and whatever happened bad that day, it's coming back. And so I believe that he took a lot of his problems out on her. Whatever, his aggressiveness obviously came from somewhere, and he just kind of took it out on her, obviously, a lot. And part of it was when she wasn't complying. He wanted it his way. He wanted those freak offs, like the one video we have of her getting beat. She wanted to leave. He wanted to have the freak off. She wanted to leave, and she wasn't doing what he wanted her to do. So, then that anger, and that's a problem for him, and he takes it on all on her. The poor thing is that they isolate you. She said that he had bought her a place to live. She became solely dependent on him, like with money, and she was expecting him to make her a big star, and then so she could have her own money. But when she's kind of tied to his hip and she's doing these freak offs, she's not making any money. She's living off him. So like she really has no way out. I always talk about this like being on an island. Sometimes when you're on an island, you're with someone who's abusive, like, they isolate you so much, so you feel like you are on this island. You really don't have anybody to talk to, and sometimes you try to keep that person happy, and you do things that you don't wanna do just to keep the peace because you're isolated, you're on this island with this person, so I'm gonna make it as painless for me as possible, so that means kind of going with his moods or, um, doing things that you don't wanna do. You kinda just do it just to keep the peace, and, like, the whole scenario of being on an island, sometimes you're like, "Well, why don't you get off the island?" And you're but when you're in this abusive situation, you're like, "But the shore is so far. The shore is so far. How do I get to the shore? I might die along the way." To the point where the abuse gets so bad, you're like, "Fuck it. I die along the way, it's better than this shit, so I'm getting in, I'm diving in, I'm fucking go heading for sure." So finally, you do get to that point, and obviously she got to that point. The fifth thing is that they denied abuse. A lot of people say that, they are I've talked to a lot of friends and they tell me what's going on in their lives, and I'm like, "That's abusive. That's full on abusive." And sometimes they don't even realize that it's abusive. Obviously, what she was going through was clear cut abuse, but I think he just played it off. They had the texts, after the freak off, the one that she got beat, and so they kinda had a back and forth after that. I think it was a Friday, so they had these texts back and forth, and she's like, "How could you treat me that way? And, I'm somebody's child." And he's like, "Yeah, well, let's just move on. Let's just forget about that. That wasn't good. Let's just move on." And it's a total denial of what just happened, and, like, just throw it under the rug and let's just move on like it never happened. The sixth thing is they make excuses for them, and, with the freak offs and stuff, I think one of the big excuses I heard was that she said he kind of was telling her his fantasies, and she didn't really wanna participate, but then she was like, "I just wanna make him happy," and she didn't wanna kinda go against him because she thought, "Oh, I don't wanna embarrass him. I don't wanna," if he has these kinda kinky fantasies, like, I just wanna kinda go with it, because I don't wanna embarrass him. I really truly believe that she loved him, but, he just abused her. She seems like a nice, sweet girl, but another thing that defense is really trying to push it, like, she was aggressive. There was one point in the trial last week where they played a video, or not a video, but an audio tape of her 'cause someone had gotten hold of the film, and she sounded pretty gangster, because someone she thought would kind of show it out, but I think that when you have a potential of video of you doing things like that, going out to the world, I'm sure you would be pretty aggressive too, not saying that you'd be that aggressive the way that she was, but she sensed that, I don't it's probably embarrassing for her, and to have that videotape go out in the world, I'm sure she didn't, but she was pretty gangster on that tape, so I think they were trying to show that she's kinda got a rough side to her too, but this is someone who's been just, beaten down and abused, and it's just like one other layer if everything gets out of what she's been kinda going through. Um, the seventh thing is that you just become emotionally numb. She talked a lot in her testimony about just taking, like, she became addicted to opioids. And she said she took a lot of the drugs just to be numb and to not feel what was actually going on. It kind of numbed her to the whole, some of the worst part of the freak offs, that she was able to be on these drugs. She got addicted to them several times and caught off of it, but the drugs were helping her because she just couldn't get numb on her own, so she needed help, and she went on the opioids and ended up getting addicted to them. So that's definitely one of the signs of trauma bonding. And the eighth thing is, like, hiding aspects of the relationship with others. I'm sure she wasn't sharing with her mom or close friends, because who are you gonna tell that to? Some of the awful things that went on, I'm sure she's not calling up her girlfriends and like, "Hey, guess what happened this weekend? Had a great time, had a big party." And some of those intimate things that were going on between them, I really think that she was probably embarrassed, obviously, and a lot of times they become, really loyal to their abuser, and you can see that she was very loyal to him. And she just, even when his ex-wife, Kim Porter, passed away, and I think they were broken up at that time, and he said, like, she was pretty much the love of my life, or she was, like, my soulmate, and she was still like, "Wait, you mean I went through all that with you and I'm still not your soulmate?" And she still kept in contact with him even after they had broken up, even when she was with her new boyfriend, which is now her husband, she was still contacting P. Diddy. I think they have a hard time getting out of the trauma bond. And one key thing that I learned after I kinda did a deep dive into this is, like, what is the big main thing, the reason why people stay? And it was explained to me very clearly. I go back to the slot machine. When you're doing the slots, a lot of people, in Vegas, they'll stay on the one slot machine because they invest so much money, and they're like, "Oh, at one point, I'm gonna get the jackpot. I'm gonna get that jackpot." Some people even wear diapers, while they're at the slot machines because they don't wanna give up because they've invested so much into that slot machine. They're like, "It's gonna pay off. It's gonna pay off because 'cause I've been here so long and I put so much money that that frigging thing is gonna pay off for me." And the biggest fear that they have is if they get up and someone else sits down and they get the jackpot. And I was like, "Wow." That was like a aha moment. You know, they're always she's probably like, "I invested so much of my time. I invested all these years and all this abuse and trying to make him happy." And he was giving her breadcrumbs along the way, like keeping her going, but she never did get what she was promised at the end. I don't think he was into her career at all, obviously. Um, but for her in these trauma bonds, like you invest all this time, and she gets up, she leaves, and he gets some other girl in there and kind of take her place, and then say she wants to be a singer or star, and he makes her the star. I think that would be absolutely devastating. So they say a lot of people, the biggest reason that people stay in this trauma bond relationship is that they're afraid that when they get up and leave that relationship and someone else comes in, that person is going to have the best part of that person. And it's a lie because they never will. That's why with an ex, I'm like, "Yeah, you can have them because 'cause you're gonna go through the same entire cycle. They're gonna get the same shit. Unless that person goes and gets help, it will always be the same thing. It will never end for them. It will always be this continuous cycle. So either you get on the bus or you get off the bus. But it would be a super telltale sign if you had any idea what the relationship was like before with that person. They seem to always blame it on the other person. So if you're with someone that just the other person was always crazy and always nuts, that's a red flag. So like I said, biggest trauma bond is being afraid to get up from that slot machine because someone else is going to sit down and get that jackpot. But here's the crux of the whole thing. There is no jackpot. There is absolutely no jackpot. It's all a fallacy. So anyways, that's what I want to talk about today. I just feel, I hope that, everybody's saying that he's going to get off. And I think that's horrible because they are trying to prove, like, yeah, she did stay, she did stay. And I think that is the biggest defense that they have is that she stayed and she participated in these text messages and things that are kind of showing that she was like, oh, I'm looking forward to it. But to me, it was just all a game. She had to live on that friggin' island with him. She had to keep him happy. She had to do what she had to do to keep the peace. I really truly do believe she loved him, but at the end of the day, a trauma bond's a horrible thing, and they say a lot of times it starts in childhood. So when you get attached into a trauma bond situation, sometimes, it comes from your childhood. You might have had some trauma in your childhood that you was never resolved, and sometimes when you get in this kind of, abusive relationship, for some reason, it's somewhat familiar to you, and some people say, "Oh, that's chemistry," or, "That's how I feel like, we're connected," and stuff, but part of that's the underlying common theme is that you feel that familiarity with that person, but it's not a positive thing, and that's why you really have to go back and do a deep dive into yourself before getting into any kind of relationship. You gotta heal those wounds first, and, hopefully that she's been through a lot of kind of rehab and psychological, well, I think she's been to rehab a couple times for the opioids that was keeping her emotionally numb while she was going through all this. But anyways, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and comments. Please like, subscribe, share, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.